The first day of spring 1967 arrived with a cold snap that nipped at my bare toes as I followed the procession of shivering girls along the walkway to morning mass. Our daily ritual began every day at 5 a.m, when Sister Isabel swept into the dormitory ringing her bloody school bell, telling us it was time to get out of bed and off to church to pray for our sins. It was still dark when we woke on the 1st of September 1967, the drafty old dormitory that had been sweltering during the Queensland summer, now as cold as a graveyard on this chilly Friday morning. Groaning, I forced my aching body out of bed, my hands self-consciously covering my pregnant belly. I'd spent a sleepless night trying to find a comfortable position to relieve the dragging ache in my back, and felt as weary today as I had when I crawled into bed the previous night. "Hurry up, get dressed," snarled Sister Isabel, pausing at the foot of my bed with her bell and scowling at me. "We mustn't keep the Lord waiting." "Bugger the Lord," I sniffed, hurrying out of my nightdress and into the flimsy white cotton shift and rubber thongs that identified us to the Catholic congregation as one of the inmates from the bad girls' home next door. Separated from respectable society by a 10-metre-high fence, barred windows and locked doors, the notorious Holy Cross retreat for wayward girls in Wooloowin was run by the Sisters of Mercy, who were skilled at correcting the errant ways of juvenile delinquents like me. Of the 24 young inmates incarcerated behind the walls of this 3-storey Victorian brick building, most were teenage runaways who had fled abusive families, safer on the streets than they were at home. Holy Cross also had its share of more troublesome offenders whose criminal and antisocial antics had landed them on the wrong side of the law. These inmates, particularly violent girls, had been deemed uncontrollable by upstanding society, and like me, were here for their own good. Mostly aged between 13 and 15, we were all wards of the state. Immoral girls, delinquents in need of reform and a firm hand. At 17, I was the oldest and the only pregnant state ward sent here in February 1967 for being exposed to moral danger. At the time of my arrest, I was living with my fiancé, Steve Benko, an aspiring 20-year-old musician. We were happy and in love, and although the pregnancy had not been planned, we were looking forward to a new life together as parents. Sadly, the authorities had taken a different view. As far as they were concerned, I was living in sin, single and pregnant. It was enough for them to know I needed locking up, indefinitely. So, here I was on this cold September morning, with the icy wind cutting through my flimsy shift, packed off to church with the bad girls to pray for God's forgiveness. Again. We were considered too unworthy to enter the church through the main entrance with the other good Catholics, and instead were ushered through a side entry into the annex, where we took our seats on one of the hard wooden pews. These were strategically located behind a wall that separated us from the rest of the upstanding congregation. We were joined by the hospital girls who lived at the unmarried mothers' home behind the main building, where our dormitory occupied the middle floor. Some were younger than me, but were nicknamed the hospital girls because they would remain within the confines of the convent until they were taken to the women's hospital in Brisbane to have their babies. They were not state wards or offenders, so they were free to come and go, usually to buy bits and pieces from the local shops and generally before they started to show. Many of the hospital girls had been sent here by disapproving parents to avoid the shame their pregnancies would bring on their families. They may not have been delinquents, but they were treated with the same contempt. The social prejudices of the time, deeming all unmarried mothers promiscuous girls, immoral, sluts.